I wasn't briefed properly on this song.
Welcome back to Rap Beer. It is episode 6. I'm Scott Davis.
John Kretschmer, and guess what, Scott? This completes Act 1, 6 episodes of Rap Beer in the can.
Congratulations, everybody. Congratulations.
Some great stories, some great education, and history's preserved.
So who's bringing home the end of Act 1?
Chuck Potter is a esteemed set decorator, a dear friend, a self-proclaimed hayseed from Mississippi who came through Wilmington on his way to New York and in a very esteemed career. And guess what? He came back.
Nice. I've worked with Chuck on one show that I know for sure, but I'm really looking forward to hearing him talk.
He makes a mean pot of gumbo. And guess what?
What?
Chuck, we still need more bubbles.
All right, let's get to it.
More bubbles.
Let's see where we are now.
Check. Everyone sounded good?
Yep.
And I don't know what show it was, but they sent me a car, right? And you're right. The cars will show up 30 minutes early. This guy decides to show up, like an hour early, 2 hours early. I'm over there on Fitzgerald Drive. He shows up in a white stretch limousine and parks it on the side of the road 2 hours before my pickup. It's like Pretty Woman, What the fuck? I went out and knocked on his door and said, dude, you just got to go somewhere else. Either show up in a black car or something, but go get a hot dog.
Yeah. Go watch a movie.
A white limousine, a white stretch limousine to pick me up.
And what time in the morning? Was it morning?
It's just middle of the day. No, he's
middle of the day.
all day long. He's sitting there, like, oh, Pretty Woman.
That's too good.
High school prom.
Chuck Potter, welcome to Rap Beer.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And Chuck and I go way back. You came in town, I guess, as the Crow.
The Crow. Yep, I did come on the Crow. I'd come the year before on Simple Justice with Kip in '92, and then I came back on the Crow, and you were the lead man. And Martha was the decorator.
Where were you born, and how did you get in the movie business?
I was born in Jackson, Mississippi. I got in the movie business through my sister. I have a degree in petroleum geology.
Oh, well, that translates perfectly to the movie
putting
business.
Educational dollars to work. I was in South Louisiana, and I was about to go to graduate school at the University of Texas in Austin. Actually, I was in Texas at the time, and I answered an ad to go to Maine as a camp counselor at a boys' camp.
Oh.
And I was like, I'd never been to Maine.
In Maine.
And on the way back to Texas from Maine, I stopped in Nashville, Tennessee, and my sister was a wardrobe stylist. She did Alabama, and she did Dolly Parton, and she did a lot of the acts in the 80s. So that was 87, August of 87. And she said, well, you looking to get back to Texas really quick, or would you want to work next week? And I was like, sure, I'll work. And I ironed clothes for her and did returns and did pickups. And then I met a guy named Fred Schwabel, who later went on to marry Johnny Cash's youngest daughter, Tara. And I hooked up with him, and he was in the art department.
In Nashville, Tennessee.
In Nashville, Tennessee. And so in those days, we did country music videos and commercials, and we did everything. You guys probably come from that world as well. Or there was no dressers, decorators,
right?
Art directors.
Small group doing it all.
We were two of us usually.
Speak for yourself. I started on a $15 million feature film in this very building. No music videos for me, pal.
Yeah. So we did it all. We drove the truck. We shopped, we picked it up, we wrapped, we cleaned up the stage, we did everything.
It's funny. I've done a couple music videos, and you're right. Even big names, a lot of money, it's still, a very small group of people, and everyone is just overlapping just to get the job done.
Yeah, it was a great way to start because
Yeah.
I got to learn everything, and the art department was the in my opinion the most fun. I didn't do wardrobe very long, so and then I kind of took off from there. I came here in '92 on Simple Justice. I badgered Kit Bartlett to death until he gave me a job.
So what actually got you to Wilmington? As far as, was it somebody said you should go to Wilmington?
There was rumors in Nashville. Nashville was going through a situation in the late '80s where they were dying for work. There was a great crew base. It was very similar to Wilmington, a real tight, really strong crew base, but no jobs were coming. And we went through the whole hire a film person through the state and go out and try to get work to come to Nashville, and nothing was happening. Everybody was belly aching. And then all of a sudden the rumors started going around, well, all the work's going to Wilmington, North Carolina.
Heck yeah.
Nobody, at that point, I had never heard of Wilmington, North Carolina.
My first movie was Marie, A True Story, which took place in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a set dresser on the ground here for a couple of weeks, and we went on location to Nashville and did that. So it took the Wilmington crowd, and I do know the crews there were great. Jenna Ball
Was there, yeah,
and some other folks. And that was a big experience for me. Within a month of being in the business, I'm on location.
right.
And,
Yeah, and I didn't end up here on it, but before I came here in '92, I did Love Field, that came through Tennessee, came through Nashville, and we did all the bus work because in the script she gets on the bus in Dallas and she's trying to get back to D.C., so they're going through the mountains, and we did all that work. And then a lot of people from here ended up, or I know Larry Sauls ended up on it in Wilson, North Carolina.
Right. And Chris Crowder.
Was he on it?
Yeah, who runs Cinespace Wilmington right now.
That's
It's
right.
from Wilson, and that was his first movie.
That was his first movie, and he just
Yeah.
he'd heard that they needed some carpenters or something like that.
He told me something like his paycheck. We got to get Chris on the show. He said
We do.
his paycheck didn't cash on a Friday,
Right.
and he was like, "Oh shit, what am I going to do?" And on Monday, he saw him hiring carpenters for Love Field.
Yeah.
And you had a great time here, but you went to New York early on in your career.
I did. I came in '92 to do Simple Justice, and then I did 3 in a row on '93. I did The Crow, and then I did The Inkwell, and then I did Radioland Murders. And I met Lester Cohen, designer from New York,
Right.
on The Inkwell. And he was going, "You got to come to New York. You got to come to New York. You got to come to New York." And at the time, my wife was building an acting career. She was still in Nashville. She wanted to go to a bigger market. She said, "Let's go to L.A." And I'm like, I can't go to L.A. I'm not interested in going to Los Angeles. She goes, "Well, you go to New York?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll go to New York." So she moved up in October of '93, and then I finished Radioland Murders and moved up in December. And Lester Cohen gave me a job in the January of '94 as an art department coordinator because I was not in the union. So it's the only job he could give me, and I worked on a Nick Gomez film called New Jersey Drive in January of '94. And then I met some people in Local 52. I took the test. They stood up for me, and I got in at the end of that year.
Nice.
So, I ended up in New York.
I always was very impressed with that. That you went there and this guy, you take your tool bag onto the subway to get to work.
Yeah.
Right?
Still do.
Yeah, still do.
Still do.
What is the script that you were handed that excited you the most when you read it about its possibility and opportunity?
The Inkwell.
Really?
Shot here. Yeah, because it was all set in 1976, I think, which the kid was 14, 15 years old. I was 14. I was 15 in 1976.
Yeah.
So
I was 16. Yeah.
So yeah, it was all period. It was a great script. It was about a young African American boy that was having troubles at home, and his parents didn't understand him, and he was a little bit weird and off, and he was doing crazy things, and he set the house on fire, and they didn't know what to do with him, and they said, well, let's go to the beach and get him out of town, and let's see if we can clear his head in the summer. So they went to what's called the Inkwell, which was in off Martha's Vineyard, and they called it the Inkwell because it was the African American beach, and they thought years ago that if they got in the water, it was going to turn black into an inkwell. It was crazy. But that was the name of the beach. So he goes to this beach. He has he has 3 different experiences as a young boy, as a teenage boy. He has his first crush on a woman who's married, young woman in her early 20s who's married to a very rich guy. She's hanging out, and he kind of falls in love with her. She doesn't really have anything to do with him. She kind of teases him a little bit. Then he meets a young girl who is his same age, and he's not really interested in her. He's more interested in the older woman with all the money, but she kind of falls in love with him. And then his parents force him to go to a psychologist or psychiatrist on the beach. So there's an elderly woman that's more of a mother figure. So he's got the crazy infatuation. He's got the young girl love, and then he's got the older woman. And in reality, in the script, he's just the vehicle. The story is about those 3 women, and he's just a vehicle that gets you from each story. So
that's interesting. You're not the first one. With all of your credits, with the work you've done around the world, I always find it interesting. It's those early projects that have such kind of influence on you.
Yeah, and I was an on-set dresser. I was not I was not decorating. I was not involved in a major way in the look of the film or anything like that.
But you were definitely involved in the watching it get put together and being involved in every scene and watching the performances and just it becoming a part of you. I mean, because as a best boy, I'm on the exact opposite. I'll work a whole film and then I'll go to see it and I'll go, oh, that's what it was about. Because I mean, my bosses used to say, if I see you on set, that means something's wrong.
Right.
If you're not here, I know you're taking care of stuff. So a lot of movies, it's funny. I was looking at The Choice, which we'll get to, but I was looking back at The Choice and looked in the trailer and realized, I never was on any of those sets when they were rolling cameras.
Yeah, your job as a best boy is tomorrow.
That's right. Exactly. It's always about tomorrow.
Your job's tomorrow.
That's right. So
as an art director, my job is it's next month.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So to have one of those roles as a technician that we were actually watching the shooting happening all the time, especially being the on-set dresser.
I always tell my on-set dressers, your job's not to call me.
Yeah, exactly.
Fix it.
Yeah, I don't want to hear from you.
Just fix it.
Your job is not to call me.
So what was your first decorating job?
My first decorating job was with you.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Sex and the Other Man.
and the Other Man in New York.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's my first titled set decorating job.
Sure.
For years, we did it in music videos. That's what I did for 6 years before I got in the union and became a decorator. So.
And that was my first design job.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
In New York City.
We were newbies. We used your truck.
I drove my white F-150 with an aluminum cap on the back, and we worked on like these kind of pseudo porn stages on 42nd Street. And every day I'd hand the keys over to Chuck, and he'd take my pickup truck all over New York City.
Shopping
For
yeah,
stuff.
Wow.
I was it. I don't even know if I had an assistant on that. I think I was just
It was me. Yeah,
I was you.
in those little movies, you design them, and then you become the lead man.
Right. Right.
But I remember on that job we went. Don't know, John. You remember? You wanted a round bed
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
was like, "Are you kidding me?
Get a round
Break
bed.
a round bed." So I got on the phone, and I actually found a round bed in a place in the Poconos called Beautiful Mount Airy Lodge, which had been there since the probably 20s. And I went out to Beautiful Mount Airy Lodge. I go into the lobby. There's this sweeping staircase that goes up, and all along the wall there's pictures of all the comedians and entertainers that had performed there. It was a who's who of everyone. Rodney Dangerfield, Shecky Green, Frank Sinatra had performed there, Nat King Cole had performed there. I mean, it was just this crazy place that had been there for a long time. And they had a round bed. They had a pink toilet, which I got. I think I got a pink bathtub, a pink toilet, a pink sink. And
I'm sorry, was this still open or had this closed?
it was still open.
It was, okay.
Yeah. And then they had a jacuzzi shaped like a martini glass, which I think we ended up getting.
No,
we didn't do it. I can't remember, but I remember
Our honeymoon suite was not so fancy
Right.
that we were depicting.
But,
I remember, and that the bed was a king size round. It was a good 7 feet in diameter, and you put that thing on top of my truck.
I was
I
just
think
going
I
to
did.
ask that. Did you use
did.
his truck?
I did.
Looked like a giant radar dish on top.
It's like Beverly Hillbillies or Sanford and Son.
we know I got to return the bed at the end of the show. And we did it. I think the set was, I call it was a honeymoon suite in a truck stop motel. That was the set, right?
And,
it was beautiful.
and our exterior was a truck stop in New Jersey.
In New Jersey. And so at the end of all, and so we had a textured stucco, where you put the trowel on the wall and you just pull it out so you get that kind of relief, and you throw glitter on it and, tobacco stain. And we did it right. It was really a successful set, I thought. But at the end of the game, I get to return the bed to the Poconos. Chuck's long gone, I think. So I strap their bed and go there, and I go out to, the beautiful Mount Airy.
Beautiful Mount Airy Lodge. All you have to bring is your love of everything to beautiful Mount Airy Lodge.
Reservations, phone 1-800-441-4410.
So I walk in, and it's off season, and you can smell the cigar smoke. It smelled like Richard Nixon's campaign headquarters.
Right,
kind of. And I walk past the club, and on the dance floor, there's a newlywed couple there being taught the electric slide by this guy with white dude with an afro. I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you. And they're the only place in this whole thing. It's like The Shining.
It is.
And sure enough, their stucco, my stucco stuck out, about an inch. Their stucco troweled out about 2.5 inches. It's all true.
When I got to New York, nobody knew who I was. I got in the union. I got in the union on that job.
As did I.
Yeah. And then at that point, I became a set dresser again because nobody knew me from Adam. So I kind of started my career over, in a way, in New York in the union as a dresser. And I did probably two to three jobs, and then I started getting hired as a buyer.
Right.
And as a buyer, I went many years.
I kind of remember we sort of had Beth Rubino in our pocket, Gretchen Rowell.
Mm-hmm. Beth Rubino gave me my first job as a buyer in New York on Sleepers. It's about kids who basically were just kids growing up in Hell's Kitchen, and they pull a prank on the hot dog guy, and he's chasing them in the cart, and something horrible happens, and he falls down the steps, and the cart comes down behind him and kills him. So they all end up in reform school. Then you cut.
Oh wow! I did not see that.
I
Cut to
read
years later.
the book. I read the book, and that's a hardcore book. Yeah.
Barry Levinson, that was the director. And then they cut to years later. They're abused by Kevin Bacon in the kids' prison. They all come out of school and have different prison and have different careers. And Brad Pitt becomes a DA, and then one of the other guys ends up running into Kevin Bacon in a bar in Manhattan and shoots him point blank, shoots him dead with 10 witnesses and whatnot. And then the DA, Brad Pitt, gets him off because he deserved it.
Yeah.
So.
Good old Barry Levinson.
Yeah. and good old Chuck Potter, kid from Mississippi who's taking charge in New York City. I find that amazing.
But yet I'm not surprised one bit. I mean, I'm just saying from the standpoint of people leave this town and do great things. A lot of times they really do. I just think this is just such a great birthing town as far as talent goes.
And I kept coming back. I couldn't
that's
natural.
Stop
coming back.
That's natural. I mean, I think back to a lot of the early producers that came during the Dino days, and just about every one of them that I worked for came back 1, 2, 3 times years later, and it was because they wanted to be amongst these people and this talent pool.
Yeah. Well, I like working with Chuck, and I'd often, reach out to try to hire him along the way. And I got 2 Chucks. There's one, I couldn't afford him, and number 2, I couldn't get him out of New York quick enough. I didn't know which one was going to answer the phone.
Now it's both.
That's right, because you're back here in Wilmington. You have a home here in Wilmington, raising your family.
Yeah, actually, my daughter's sophomore, about to be a junior at NC State. So
wow,
we spent her whole life growing up here. Yeah, so now I'm starting to go back to New York a little bit. I've always turned those jobs down to stay home, and it's kind of good to go back and trying to figure out how to finish it.
Right.
I'm 4 or 5 years from.
I was so fortunate. Homeland landed exactly when my first day of college for my oldest daughter, and it ended on the last day of college for my youngest daughter. It was a 10-year span, paid for school,
awesome.
Perfectly.
That's incredible. Yeah.
I was very fortunate in that.
Yeah. So, but always drawn back here. Would come back any chance I could get. Tantar used to call me all the time and say, "I need some help, Mo. Come on down. I need some help." So I'd come down and help Tantar for a few weeks, and when I was in between gigs in New York. And
when I was a young designer, too, I'd get gigs in New York, the kind where I'd have to ride the train up to interview. And if I got the job, I'd ride the train right back and load up my truck or whatever. And many times I'd sleep on Chuck's couch.
Yeah, that's true.
And,
yeah.
Did it turn into jobs for you? That when you let him sleep on your couch, did you say, "Hey"?
No.
And I'll tell you why.
He couldn't afford me.
Which he's already said.
Oh, no. You got to think about it. He's in 52.
Yeah.
And they're doing these major features on the streets of New York.
Oh,
and
sure.
I'm up there scrapping for the little itty bitty things. That got nothing.
No, I get you.
I wasn't briefed properly on the subject.
Tantar always had the fabulous film chicken, or he called it something like that.
Vernon knows it very well. Says it very well.
Yeah, and the chicken, Tantar always encouraged us to get the film chicken discreetly get the film chicken to whatever film we were working.
Yes, planting it somewhere.
On a bookshelf.
I actually do remember some of this
in
now.
a pile of laundry, or in a tackle box, a fishing tackle box or something. And
sort of the original Elf on a Shelf, actually, I think.
Yeah, a little bit. But he always had the rubber chicken, and we were always get very creative and try to figure out how we're going to get the rubber chicken into whatever shot we're doing. So we're on the stage. I think we're on stage 4, and we were doing the Margaret Mitchell story, and we had built a train car. Construction had built a train car. We'd gotten some parts or seats, and they built a car around it. And in the old days, you put the train car on inner tubes. Car inner tubes, and the grips would go with a pipe on either side, and they'd rock the car, so it would look like the car was moving down the track. And then they would dolly move. They'd go opposite on the dolly move to look like the car was taking off from the train, from the station. So we got the Doughboys are going off to war. It's 1918, 1916, something like that. So I got all these kids, baby-faced kids, all dressed in doughboy outfits. They're going off to war. The scene is they're pulling out of the station and they're all waving goodbye. So I went, this is perfect for the rubber chicken. so I run to the truck and I get the rubber chicken and I find this kid in one of the windows and I come up to him and I said, okay, do me a favor. This is what I want you to do. I said, take the rubber chicken in your left hand and just barely have its head peeking over the corner of the window, the edge of the window of the train car, and just hold it. So it just and I would show him where to hold it, and I said, hold it right there and don't move it. Don't pick it up.
That's right.
Don't, just leave it right there. And he's like, okay, I got it. So we all pull back, sound speed, sound rolling, camera action, and the car starts rocking, the steam comes up, the dolly starts to move back, and I'm watching the monitor, and the kid has moved the rubber chicken to his right hand.
Oh, no.
And is holding it out the window of the train car, just waving it, just like, woo! We're going to war! He's got the rubber chicken, and all of a sudden I hear the director go, cut! What the fuck is that chicken doing? And at that moment, I kind of like went out the back door.
Oh, hell yeah.
I got to get something off the truck.
Yeah.
I'll be right back. And I was out the back door.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that was Tantar and the chicken.
What's another show you worked on with Tantar?
Radioland Murders. Same. Well, no, this was before. Radioland Murders was a great show, and I don't know, it was a George Lucas show. It was actually, I think, in the very beginning of remotes on cameras, and Lucas was able to see the camera position from Skywalker Ranch when we were shooting here in Wilmington. Right.
Was that the show that it was basically on all the time, and so
Yes.
you could see you could see a room,
Yes.
whether anybody was sitting there or not?
Yes.
I remember that.
And he would sit, and he would often come by and look, and he would watch for a little bit, and he would give his input. And I think that was the very first time that ever was done remotely.
possibly,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, that would have been 93 when we shot.
Doesn't surprise
But
me.
Tantar was the prop master on that, and we had all of this great old radio gear. And it was the show itself is a show about a radio program.
Oh no, it's beautiful as far as, like you said, the authenticity of all the equipment. I mean, it really had a great period feel about it.
And then I actually went. Tantar sent me to New York to get the hand props that we needed for the radio show, and it was the rain stick and the horse clompers and the drums and
So
the
sound effects.
The
sound
sound
effects,
effects.
So you
yeah.
went up to New York to get actual ones from a radio station? Or?
I got them from a company called Carroll Music, which I think is still in business. And Mr. Carroll had done the original sound effects for NBC, and he had all of the original stuff down in the basement. And I spent 2 days in the basement pulling stuff out, and it was all covered in dust and
and
boxes.
he was like, whatever you want?
Yeah, because he thought, well, we get to see it again. And
Right.
And he was dead at that point. His kids ran the company.
Okay.
But they were like, yeah, I know Dad would love it if this made it in a movie, and everybody saw how this worked.
You know, and anyone knows Tantar, and we certainly know all the stories of Tantar, but if there's one thing, his props were spot on.
They were spot
he
on,
was,
yeah.
he was.
He'd dive in front of the truck for him.
He's genius to have the right thing in front of camera.
Yeah.
Genius.
But the funniest story with the props on that was Vernon, Harold, and I. And we had a director, and his name was Mel Smith. Apparently he was, I didn't know him at the time, but he was, he had some renown as a English comedian. He was kind of in the Benny Hill world. He came up at the same time as Benny Hill. And,
Okay.
very robust Englishman, loved to smoke cigars. That was part of our job, was providing him cigars all day long in the prop department. And we were doing a scene. We were on the stage, I think in 4 again. We'd built a stage. And in the radio programs, it was like a vaudeville act. You know,
Right.
you'd have a show, you'd have singers, you'd have somebody, performing, and then they'd do advertisement. In this particular advertisement, they had a young lady come across, and she was in it was an advertisement for detergent, laundry detergent, and she was in a box. So she's dancing across, and she's in her box, and she's, it's over her, and she's singing the jingle, and it's something about, with the bubbles and the thing, and the bubbles is what it is. And at that time, we had rigged a bubble machine around her waist. So we turned it on, and at the end she goes dun 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 dun, and puts her hands up, and all these bubbles are supposed to start
Like
suds, and bubbles are supposed to start coming out of her box all around her head. So she does her whole thing, and there da 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 da. We turn the bubble machine on, the bubbles start coming out, and we hear the director, Mel Smith, cut! We need more bubbles! So we run in, Vernon and I are adjusting the bubble machine. We add a second bubble machine, and at this point she's like,
Oh my God. Now dance, monkey, dance.
So she dances across. Actually, they said, okay, we'll just cut to the bubbles. We've already got the other. So she's there, and she goes, dun, 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 and the bubbles start coming up, and we hear, more bubbles! We need more bubbles! And Vernon and I are like looking at each other like, what the fuck are we going to do here? So it was like, it was surreal at some point. The next thing I knew, I'm on my back on the stage, covered in black Duvetine with a jar of bubbles in my hand, and and Vernon's right next to me doing the same thing, and we're putting the wand into the jar and blowing. So we're blowing bubbles up her skirt, and it's supposed to be the machine's going and all the detergent's just all over our face, and we're just like covered in wet. I'm looking at Vernon, and his face is red, and he's covered in things, and Mel is still screaming, more bubbles!
But just one you're most proud of, for your work as a decorator. And feel free to name any of the ones that I designed.
Which
You're a
can
designer?
which you can see on John's IMDb page.
I think the one I enjoyed the most doing and really got into was Lovely Bones. I did we did a 1973 mall in Philadelphia, in South Philadelphia, and it was an empty mall. And I think I had 22 storefronts in the mall, and we were all through the mall. I had a I had a dress shop, I had a shoe shop, I had a record store, I had a hardware, I had a furniture, I had a toy store.
And you were the decorator on this?
I did that particular. George Statita was the decorator.
Oh, okay.
And I did he hired me to do them all.
Yep.
And I worked on them all from August until we shot it in December.
Wow.
And that was all I did. And we ended up going around the clock because they moved it up in the schedule, and we had dressers.
Of course they did.
Yeah.
It's only on those big jobs that they move it.
And it was one of those where it was like no sleep. I was sleeping in the mall in a cot in the back, and then getting up and just doing it, and it was great. There was a diner, there was a malt, like a milkshake stand, there was like a hot dog place, a head shop, a bridal shop. We had a movie theater, and then it was all had to be Christmas as well.
Oh,
period
wow.
Christmas.
So you dress all the shops, then you decorate them for the holidays.
Yes.
Oh my God.
And then it all had to come down. And then that particular was really interesting about that show was that it was executive produced by Spielberg. And he came in, and Peter Jackson was the director, and Peter wanted to do an homage to Spielberg. So in our bookstore, he said, I would like Stephen, to be over in the corner perusing a copy of Jaws. And I remember saying, Jaws didn't come out until 75.
Oh, what was the year of this?
73.
Okay.
And we went to Peter, and we went, Peter, no one would tell him because they were all scared of him.
Right.
And George and I went to him and said, technically this is not period correct. That, he looked at us both and he went, that's a problem, isn't it? And we went, yeah, it's kind of a big problem. And he goes, no one will ever know. And he shot it anyway. So Spielberg is in the show reading a copy of Jaws.
Oh, my gosh.
In
1973.
In 73. An advanced copy.
Yeah. You had mentioned Surface when you first came in. And
right. That was also the Pate Brothers.
The Pate Brothers did Surface. That's correct.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of funny stories from Surface. There was, I remember one with special effects. Special effects, I don't know, in the premise of the story, they find this little creature called Nimrod, and the kids got him in his aquarium, and he starts to grow, and he gets bigger and bigger, and he's like, what do I do? Then Nimrod escapes, and he's kind of like crawling through the backyards of neighborhoods, and he ends up in this above-ground pool. And at this point, they've got the animal control is trying to catch Nimrod and corral him and take him in.
Right.
So the animal control is coming, and they're in the backyard, and the whole gag is that the guy has one of these spears or some snare, and he's supposed to be poking the pool, and he pokes the pool, and every time he pokes, a stream of water comes out. So
was that the gag?
That was the gag.
Okay.
Poke the pool, stream of water. Poke the pool, stream of water. So it ends up being like Swiss cheese.
Right.
So we're out in Ogden. Of course, I have to do the pool, so I get the above ground pool. It takes a day and a half to fill it full of water.
Right.
They go out to do the test. And let me back up a second. I come in, the effects guy comes into the office, and I said, oh, how did the test go? And he went, badly. And I went, oh, great. So we all go into the office.
Is this Dave Beavis?
It's Dave Beavis. Badly.
I wasn't going to say his name.
So we go in to see the video, and we're all in the office. The Pate Brothers are there. He rolls the video, and as long as we're naming names, Tim McKinna is dressed up as the Wrangler. He's got the little hat on, and Tim weighs about 90 pounds soaking wet. And he's going around, rolling, action. He pokes the pool, and the entire entire thing explodes into a wave of water, and all of a sudden you hear, oh, 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 and then the camera, you see it go tilt straight up into the air and water wave over it, and then you see Tim McKinna going ass over elbows right past the camera in the water. And I turned around, and Jonas and Josh Payton, and their mouths are open. They're like, "Oh my God!" You see, and the first thing they both say is, "He okay?" And David's like, "Yeah, he's okay." And then they looked at each other, and they looked back at him, and they said, "We love it. Can you do it again?"
And then everybody looks at you.
And everyone looked at me and said, "We have another pool, right?" And I went, "No, we do not." So we flew in a pool from Canada.
Oh, wow.
Set it up all weekend, and they shot it on the Monday morning.
On them and came back. When I came back, those things were upside down in the back of the truck. Ooh, that knot didn't really work, did it? May not. No, I guess I tied may nots. They may not hold.
May not. Yeah.
And you know, the fun thing or interesting thing back in that time, not only didn't have cell phones, we didn't even have pagers. So the protocol was you'd have a roll of quarters, and at every single vendor, so you've got 20 pickups to do in the 5-ton back then. Every single vendor, you would ask to borrow the phone and call in. Anything else? And every step along the way. Yep. And every stop, you had to make a call to check on what's going on. And we finally got pagers. I think it was Shag was the first movie that was handed a pager. Mm-hmm.
But then you still had to stop and find a payphone.
You still got to stop and find a payphone.
But they were a lot easier to find back then.
Yeah,
that's true.
They were.
And then you get into the coded messages. 911 means stop everything, and 811 means it's kind of an emergency. And then I'm working on a job up in Richmond, Virginia, and we'd movie of the week kind of thing, and we're just been at it. Weeks and weeks and weeks without a day off. And finally, me and the other lead man, the local guy up there, we finally got an evening, where we could just leave the warehouse. So we found a bar, sit down and get a burger and a beer. And we get a page that says 711. And we're like, what does that mean? Now, had they paged 911, we would have ignored it.
Right.
Fuck it, nah. 811, nah. 711, we're like,
gotta know.
You want to know what it is? It means the company set the sprinkler off.
Really?
Big old apartment set off the sprinkler with a fancy furniture store below it.
Oh, no.
And so that's what 711 means. It means the sprinkler went off.
So
I remember a phone call I got. I was with you, and we were at the place is still there. It's in the Cotton Exchange, the bar.
Oh,
Patty's Hollow.
Patty's Hollow, and it was the Crow. I was leaving to go back to Nashville. You were dressing the shipyard,
right,
when it was still there, and you said, "Come on, I'm gonna buy you a beer before you leave." So it was middle of the day. It was lunch. We went to Patty's Hollow. I think we had one, and we probably had another. Then you got a phone call from Martha. And Martha was the decorator, and I could kind of hear her through the phone. And she's like, "John, how is everything going down there? How's everything looking down there?" That's what she said. And John said, "Everything looks good from here, Martha." We'll have one more, please.
That's awesome. That was the set. It was hot as hell. So I'd send the crew take a 2-hour lunch. It was just so blazing hot.
Right.
And that's always the way I work my crew. So take a super long lunch, get your core temperature back down, and come back to work. Right. And that was my MO. And we'd ended up, I think, through the designer, Alex McDowell or something, we added like 200 fishing crates to the set. Like the day, they're shooting at night, and 200 fishing crates came in. And
when you say fishing crate,
whatever, just
lobster crates. Or?
Lobster crates.
Oh,
like
a crab.
No, just a wooden crate.
Oh, wooden. Okay, wood. I was just trying to
what? In set dressing we have the killer bees.
Yeah.
Boxes, bags, and barrels.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
And sometimes
burlap.
Those kind of sets have a certain amount of that component.
Yeah,
Boxes.
I'm with you now.
The killer bees. I need 3-5 tons of killer bees. Bring them in.
Gotcha.
And but
I love that.
And I think what we did, we went to Corbett and got new ones. Where they make the peach crates or whatever is what they were.
Right.
And brand new ones. Brought 200 of them down to the set that they shoot that night. Brian Stoltz.
I was going to say.
Scenic artist.
I was going to say you had to bring in somebody.
I got to get this right. What did he say? He's standing on top of them. I think we load him down there. He's standing on top of them. He says, 200 crates right before call. 200 crates right before call.
I could totally see that.
So that became the new homage for Brian is never too busy to say no.
Oh my God. I got to find him.
Brian Stoltz is in Atlanta. I think he's been doing the Marvel gig.
I wasn't briefed properly on the subject.
All right.
Chuck Potter, he's hilarious.
He thinks it's funny.
At least he thinks it's funny.
He's the funniest person he knows.
Top man in his own particular field. That was big on King Kong, one of the Brits.
That's right.
Top man. That Chuck Potter, top man in his own particular field. Top man.
My friend Stuart used to say, considering what you have to work, Mr. Potter, considering what you have to work with, you do all right.
Exactly.
Oh,
There
speaking
he
of the
is.
devil.
Hey, speaking of all that,
Sit down.
Chuck's got one more he's going to tell us that he thinks is funny.
Come on, jump in and join us,
you're
John.
gonna
I think it's
hot and
funny.
everything.
he thinks it's funny.
Got a hot mic just swinging around.
It was one that Forces of Nature, and we were in all over the place. We started in Savannah. We went to Beaufort. We went to Washington, D.C. We went to Richmond. We went to Cherokee, North Carolina. It was kind of a road show. Ben Affleck and Sandra Bullock, they're on a train trying to get to a wedding in Savannah, and they're having all these problems. The hurricane comes in, blah, 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 blah. So we ended up in a scene in a town called Silva, North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
Been there.
And when we got there, we're supposed to be dressing a train car. The train is starting in Silva. It's going to head up into the mountains, and they're going to shoot them, and they're in a baggage car. And they're trying to get to this wedding. So we go into Silva. We bring the 5-ton. We've got actually probably 2 5-tons. We're trying to dress out this box car. And when we get into town, the FBI is there, and they've got a dragnet set up, and they're trying to find Eric Rudolph, who had bombed all the abortion clinics in Atlanta. So they're there. This is how far up in the mountains we are, and they're in there, and they're running through town, and they're in the woods, and they're trying to find this guy. So we're dressing out this car, this box car. I've got luggage, I've got food in crates, I've got sunflowers, I've got live chickens, I've got all this crazy stuff in this boxcar, and we get to the last part of the dress, and the designer says, that corner is kind of emptied. Can we put something in that corner? Something interesting in that corner, kind of tall. And Patrick Furman says, the set dresser, you know what would be cool is a pallet of plastic Santa Clauses. and it's August in the mountains of North Carolina. And I cut the look at him. It's like, I'm gonna fucking kill you. And the designer goes, yeah, that would be great.
That's awesome.
Because he doesn't have a calendar either.
So I said, I don't know if I'm going to get you plastic Santa Clauses. I said, I'll drive into Waynesville or whatever the closest town was to the Walmart, and I'll see if there's some statues in the garden center or something. And so I take off, and I drive the hour and 15 minutes to the closest town, and I walk into Walmart. It's August. I walk into the garden center. It's empty because the season's over. They're moving their garden statues out, and they're about to move in their Christmas trees probably. But it's completely empty. I'm like, fuck. So I walk into the Walmart. I'm walking down. I'm kind of looking down aisles. I'm going down the edge, looking at end caps and just kind of peering down aisles. And I get to this aisle, and I turn and look, and I see a row of cardboard boxes that are about 3 feet tall. And as I'm walking down past them, I see this little woman, and she's kind of bent over and osteoporosed, and she's an older lady, and she opens a box and reaches in, and she pulls out a plastic Santa Claus.
Nice.
And I'm going, no, this is not happening. So I walk up to her and I said, excuse me, ma'am. She goes, hi. And I said, are all of these plastic Santa Clauses? And she goes, they sure are. And I said, well, leave them in the boxes because I'll take all of them. And she's like, what? So I buy all the plastic Santa Clauses. I've strapped them to my minivan. They're piled in. I'm like Sanford the Son coming back to the set. And I get back to the set, and I hand Patrick Furman the keys, and I said, unload the van.
Oh, nice.
And the plastic Santa Clauses made the movie. They were right behind them. The big shot in the movie.
Thank God, just for your own sanity.
For about 5 years after that, every Christmas, UPS would knock on my door, and there'd be a plastic Santa Claus in a box. He sent me a plastic Santa Claus for Christmas for about 5 years after that.
Chuck, thank you very much for doing Rat Beer.
What a delight.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I wasn't briefed properly on this song.
I cannot believe you found that many Santa Clauses.
That's the best part about set dressing and stuff, are those kind of miracles that happen. And as cool and special as it is, it's actually very common.
I mean,
and that's our existence.
I was going to say, it doesn't even surprise you.
No.
Right?
No. And I'll say this very quickly. In the art department,
Right.
The designer designs it, the draftsman drafts it, the construction builds it. And they'll use wood, nails, glue, whatever. Scenics paint it. And they have their, shelves full of goo and voodoo mixes and stuff
Right.
to do things. But they're fairly limited quantities. And then next is set dressing. And guess what? It's an infinite variety of things we have to bring to the table. One evening we're doing a gas station, and it's crack of dawn the next morning, we're dressing a 16-year-old girl's bedroom. And all that shit's got to fit on the truck.
Oh my God, that's so true.
Right.
That's so true.
So that set dressing, Chuck Potter definitely epitomizes the romance and serendipity of set dressing.
And faith. And faith knowing it's going to be there
You're
somehow.
damn straight. And guess what? You do not come back empty-handed, no matter what. No matter what, you don't come back empty-handed. So, more bubbles, Mr. Potter.
Oh my God, what a
Well
wonderful,
done.
wonderful interview.
And that's a wrap to Act 1 of Rat Beer.
6 episodes, Johnny. 6 episodes.
Who'd have thunk it?
I know.
And coming up next, guess what?
Oh no.
The doctor is in again.
More doctor stories?
Tom Jones had more to tell that we could fit in one episode, and he came back with more weird tales to tell.
Oh, I can't wait. Oh,
So
that's awesome.
episode 7, The Doctor is in again.
We got a lot of neat folks on deck for Act 2.
We're going to dive deep into this rich and weird history of the Wilmington film community.
So that's Rap Beer, everybody. And don't forget, rapbeer.com. I'm Scott Davis with my co-host John Kretschmer. And remember, be kind.
Rap Beer is created and written by Scott Davis and John D. Kretschmer. The theme music's provided by Turbo Pro Project. This one-of-a-kind podcast is recorded at the historic screening room at Cinespace Studios in Wilmington, North Carolina. Copyright Bluffco Industry 2024.